My go-to self-care is I love music, so it may be doing the same thing, jumping in my car, putting some music on. I actually love to park at the airport and watch the planes take on and off. To me, that is, I don't know why, but super fascinating and very calming.
Welcome to the TCS Women podcast, where the ladies of the top contractor school are going to get together to discuss what it's like to be a woman in construction, leadership, and navigating the balance between it all. Your host for the TCS Women podcast will be Karla Goldammer, who has been in construction for almost 30 years with D&J Site Construction. She will be accompanied by a rotation of co-hosts that include Elizabeth Reinman of RK Reinman Construction, Sandra Albert of Bay Country Contractors, Lillian Callaway of K&L Industries, and Kelsey Wright of Pro Line Parking Lot Maintenance. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to TCS Women. We are glad y'all are here. I'm here with Sandra and Lillian, and we're going to talk about putting fires out and getting full steam ahead into our all of our jobs right now. How are you ladies doing?
Good.
Sandra, we'll start off with you. You were telling us about your internet problems the last couple of days. What's going on?
You know, when you're ready to go full steam ahead, life throws curves at you, and then you have to just learn to kind of pivot around those problems. It's a busy time for us. We've got 6 current jobs going on. I've picked up 5 new jobs, and potentially 3 more contracts to sign. So it's just, it's super busy for us. And yesterday I had an internet issue, needed to submit payroll. Of course, internet down doesn't allow you to submit payroll. And, you just have to, again, learn how to pivot. So come home, work, submit payroll. It didn't submit, it's just a normal Thursday. That's how it goes.
Exactly. I've had that problem happen too. It's like you thought it got done and the guys are texting you at 6 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, I didn't get my direct deposit. What's going on? And
and everyone's like, am I getting paid? Yes, of course you're going to get paid. It's not showing up in your deposit yet, but tonight at midnight, be sure to check it because it'll be in there.
Yeah.
But, it's just learning to, take some of those problems and, learn how to prepare and fix them, so then it's no longer am I submitting, payroll through direct deposit. Now I'm having to wire the funds, and it's just the life of management that we all play, of what are the problems going to be for today? For me, it's always a task I start my day off every day with a list of these are the items that I need to get to. And usually within the first hour of being in the office, I can't even get to my list anymore. So many things have come onto my plate. And I'm now a fireman trying to put out all the fires. And then a lot of times, my day actually doesn't start until 4 or 5 o'clock because I'm dealing with just different things that, pop up and come at me. And so while I'd love to be able to get my job done, for my own personal tasks, a lot of times I have to push that off.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Lillian?
Oh, I feel everything that Sandra was saying is that you come in the morning and you have a list of things to do that you need to do because that's your job. But all day long, all you're doing is putting out fires. Someone comes in and a problem with the internet. Well, who's going to deal with that? Oh, well, I guess I have to. And oh, well, this didn't get delivered. So who's going to deal with that? Or it got delivered to the wrong place. Or for us, our latest issue is that we just move offices. So I'm working out of boxes on the floor behind me. For the most part, we're all moved in, but trying to find the files of where we moved anything. And my desk has papers everywhere, just trying to figure out what's where and not lose it because we don't have a solid place to put stuff yet. And so I was here 12 and a half hours yesterday working on payroll so I could get that done, because on top of that, it's starting to be the busy season. So we have some prevailing wage jobs, we have some regular jobs, trying to cover all the little details with all those things because it's complicated. It's not like, oh, so John makes $32 an hour, he worked 14 hours, great, there's your check. It's all these extra little details that there's forms after forms after forms that you have to fill in. And if something goes wrong, whoops, internet disappeared and so did my form. So now we start all over again. And it's just a daily thing. It's not that it's something new or that we're surprised by. We just really never know what our day is going to actually entail. We have an idea of the things we need to get accomplished, but it's not that we know exactly how our day is going to go and what's going to happen. Because yesterday I planned on leaving early, but that didn't happen. And so that's some of those things that is the life of being an entrepreneur and business owner, and in the management part is that you do what you have to do. And it's not like we get to say, oh, well, I'm going to go home at this time because my 8 hours is done, because we all know it's not 8 hours. So
Yeah, I travel everywhere with my laptop now. So, and of course our phones are our little computers also. So everywhere we go, we have to do something. Somebody's calling or texting or emailing.
yeah.
I think too, as entrepreneurs and business owners, there's really no end to the day. Like it is not a 9 to 5 job, and I think there's a lot of, perception out there is like, oh man, like I wish that I could own my own business, or I wish that like I could run a company. And, you can just take off whenever you want, and you can, you're only accountable for yourself. And, if you want to go on vacation, or if you just don't feel like doing something for the day, you can just, kick back. And I'm so quick to remind people that entrepreneurship is actually much harder than working in the corporate world, because our jobs require us, essentially round the clock. There is no time off. And when the three of us are off, that means that nobody is performing our duties. So actually, when we take time off work and come back, you have that that week's worth of work plus whatever you took off from the previous week. So it's long days and hard hours for sure.
I'm reminded of Brian's comment always of must be nice. Yeah, it must be nice, but you're never really off. You are working. But something that we're trying to do is to cross train so that the pertinent jobs that I do, like payroll and prevailing wage and things like that, trying to train someone so that I can talk them through doing the work versus me having to sit on the phone or sit on my little phone and work on doing prevailing wage or something like that. But it's hard. It's hard to cover all the details when we have so much in our head of what we do and how to do it and how to efficiently do it. And when you try to train someone, they ask so many questions. You're like, I'm just going to do it because I can't answer all these questions. Taking way too long. My time's pertinent. So there's a balance of trying to figure out how to train someone in your job and the things that you do, and answer the questions in a timely manner, but not in so much detail that it's taking 4 times longer. And that's a really hard line to walk, especially this point in the season, because we're like I said before we started, we started in first gear and now we're in fourth gear and we're running. I mean, we're going as fast as we can, and it's hard to slow down to do some of those training things, but oftentimes you have to slow down in order to speed up, because as soon as someone else knows it, it's passed off, and now we can pick up some more of those fires that are out there lingering and simmering to clean up those areas. But it is an artwork of balancing the scale all the time.
Yeah, most definitely. I know Stacy and I always talk about having a binder labeled "if I don't show up." And it's true. Like, what does Stacy do all day, and her passwords and her, her usernames, and what does she do, and who's going to do that if she doesn't show up? And if you don't have that binder, then we're just all like, well, how do we get into that? Or, whatever. And I'm the same way, just people knowing everything that we do as leaders and everything. Oh, I lost my train of thought big time. Um,
I'll tell you, Karla, I had an aha moment this week. My aha moment was when I look at the amount of time that I am spending and the tasks that I'm doing, I am burning at both ends.
mhm.
And that by myself burning at both ends, I'm not actually accomplishing anything working 14 hours a day. Like when I get past a certain point, my brain is done, my energy level is gone. And at that point, I'm not moving the ball forward because I'm burned out. And I just self-care, by being able to know like what my boundaries are, that, we do put out fires all day long and I may not get to the task that I need to, but am I really making a difference by working till 10, 11 o'clock at night? Well, the answer is no. I'm not really moving the ball forward and producing so much more by staying and completing tasks when I'm burned out.
Right.
So I think it's important to remind, our viewers that while we are all very strong women who are tasked with many things throughout the day, self-care is super important. Don't burn yourself on both ends like I've been doing, because it's not productive.
Right. I mean, sometimes you just have to stop and say, you know what? This will be here tomorrow when I get here. And it's not going to change the world if I don't get it done today. We think it does in our mind, but really at the end of the day, that next person's not going to really care. Like if we got it done at 8 a.m. or 10 p.m. that night. So sometimes we just have to say, yeah, I'm going home. I'm putting it down. I'm going home, turning the phone off. But my earlier thought was yesterday on our TCS Inner Circle call, we were talking about hiring, and you shared with us, what you going through, and you go through interviews and then you drop the ball and you go through interviews. And then Lillian was talking about training someone, and I'm the same way. I really could use another person in here with Stacy and I. But the thought of training someone and spending half my day sitting there with them training, I'm like, no, we'll just get it done. We'll figure it out and get it done ourselves. So that's not a good thing, but I'm working on it.
Well, you have to choose small bites of what you can give up. And I think I have two thoughts. One was on what Sandra was saying. A thing that helps me is prioritizing when I know there's deadlines and I know there's things that are time sensitive. Those are the things that I do put all my time into and make sure I accomplish them. But the other stuff, like you said, it'll be there tomorrow. And I'm just as guilty as everyone else that I don't always just stop, because I like to check those things off my list like everyone else. And then I know it's done. But like Sandra said, when I'm here in the office till 10 or 11 at night, I'm not doing any good because it's taking me 3 times longer because my brain is done. And sometimes it just takes recognizing that to stop and say, am I still being productive, or am I having to go over these facts way too many times? So let's just stop and pick it up tomorrow. And that's what I did yesterday. I'm working on payroll because it's a super complicated one. And it came to the point where I could review everything and it's like, okay, I know these 7 people, I have to relook at their payroll, but I'm going to walk out the door. So I left it where it was and I left and I came back, and first thing this morning, fresh, no one in the office, I got it done in less than an hour's time. But had I stayed last night, it would have probably taken me 2 or 3 hours because my brain just wasn't thinking, because I was just tired. I had handled too many issues, and we're all guilty of that. We are the females that are made to take care of the tasks. And sometimes we have to step back and think about, okay, am I being productive or am I just trying to get this done? And there's a balance, and we need to recognize our own selves and our own limits and say, okay, we're done for the day. We're going to go, we're going to relax and pick it up tomorrow. But in that, the training process, you also have to what I've done, actually a good exercise, and I would challenge both of you to do this, is to sit down and write all the jobs you do. This became very, very helpful for me a few years ago when I had to write job descriptions of everything I did. And I literally was wearing 8 different positions and hats. And I knew I was overwhelmed, but until I had to write a job description and pull out each one of these pieces, I had no idea where to start. And when I realized that, it's like, okay, now I've got this hat and I've taken it off. I've got this hat and I've taken that one off. And now what's the next one that I can take off so that we can start peeling that onion. But until we know how many layers are there, you can't start peeling. And that's an important aspect. And even if it's hiring someone part-time to come in and do a few menial tasks, but that's still a separate hat. So you need to be able to identify all the jobs that you're doing so that you can start peeling and you know where to hire. And then it becomes less challenging because you know the direction you're heading. Whereas I know that I was at the point where I know I need to hire someone, but I don't know what for. And until I identified all those 8 different positions, then I could then say, okay, this is where the first one that it can take off a huge weight off of my back. And now I can start working off all of I kind of rated them in priority. So now I'm dealing with one by one, pulling it off to give it to the next person so that I can work less hours. And I do, like, one of the things that we go round and round is that when I'm overwhelmed, I'm going to the bank. I'm going to the post office. They're like, oh no, you can't do that. I need to do that. I'm like, no, I'm doing that because that is self-care for me. It's because then I'm out of here. It's brainless. I can just do it. So it's realizing some of those tasks that you can do to give your time to think as well.
Now, is it just like you said brainless, but I enjoy driving. So is it the act of just driving that you like?
Yes, that's I will drive, I will turn on the radio, and I will just drive somewhere. In fact, when we were moving the office, I walked into our general manager and I said, I'm just going for a drive. He goes, oh, are you going to go tell anyone? I'm like, nope, I'm walking out of here. I'm going for a drive. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm not taking phone calls. I'm going for a drive and I'll be back. But yes, I do enjoy driving.
Yeah. Then Sandra, what is your go-to self-care?
My go-to self-care is I love music, so it may be doing the same thing, jumping in my car, putting some music on. I actually love to park at the airport and watch the planes take on and off. To me, that is, I don't know why, but super fascinating and very calming. But if I'm at home, maybe it's just like throwing myself into the bathtub and just shutting everything off, all the electronics, and just taking a moment to breathe.
Yeah. And you, Lillian, besides driving?
Well, if I'm home, the truth is we will turn on a Hallmark movie that all of the themes are the same, so you don't have to think a whole lot, but it's a feel-good thing, so I can just turn it on and literally just stare at a movie and not think about anything. And that truly is what mine and Keith's getaway. If we are just overwhelmed, we will go to a movie because we can't take phone calls. It's dark. We don't have to think. That's how we get re-energized together, because we can sit there, hold hands, and not talk, not do anything. We can just be.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So we're in the thick of our seasons. I know this gets to be a busy time for us because people want to finish up jobs, before summer's out and this and that. What projects are you working on, Lillian, that demand so much time?
Oh, we have jumped into the public works realm. And I know on the East Coast, there's a different name for them, but that's what we call them here, is public works jobs. And none of the money is local. So our guys are having, like, this week, we have 2 crews in one direction east of us, and we have 1 crew south of us, and they're all a few hours away. So it was a lot of logistical stuff of gas, food, hotels, all those kind of things. But we have, I think this week we worked on 4 different contracts and trying to complete them. And of course, it snowed.
Wow.
Where a couple of the
Really?
crews are. And so they've had to change their whole schedule and figure it all out. And so yeah, we have quite a few contracts in the public works realm that all have June or July deadlines. So we're trying to get those done, because in July, then we have another huge job that will be on for a month. And then you fit all the residential stuff in there too. But yeah, there's just a lot of logisticals, and no public money has gone local yet. And so there's a lot of travel in there, which complicates it, because we also have 3 guys with their babies due in July. So we're going to be really putting in a lot of time covering for those guys, because they're lead guys. So,
Mm. Yeah,
you
that's
know,
hard. That's hard.
always entertaining, that's for sure.
And y'all, Sandra?
I mean, we are super busy, full steam ahead. Something that I've noticed here in the last 2 months is we're working with a lot of new GCs. So these are new contracts that I've never seen before. I feel like it's taking me a whole lot longer to review these contracts, because I'm seeing a lot of things in these contracts that I've never seen before.
Mhm.
Specifically, I had sorry, my dog. Specifically, I had a contract this past week where this specific general contractor had an established relationship with a trash removal waste disposal company. And part of this contract, we were required as a sub to also have a contract with this disposal company. And so inside of that contract, if we didn't have all of these safety measures and use this specific waste management company, there were extreme liquidated damages for this account. And I've never set up an account on a job where we've had to use specific waste disposal companies. So I wasn't happy with the liquidated damages, and the wording of it was it just seemed very sticky.
Mhm.
So long story short, we went back and forth for about 2 weeks about this contract. And it came down at the end of the day that the general contractor didn't even know that their contract stated that I was to have an account with their waste management program. So it was honestly really surprising to me that through a lot of these contracts here recently on these new jobs, that these general contractors have no idea what their own contract says. And I am the one who's doing all of the educating of them of, hey, your contract says this. I don't agree to this, or this. And they're like, oh, our contract doesn't say that. Well, on page such and such under exhibit K, it actually states this. So, it's been, for me, I feel like that's been challenging with these new jobs, is just making sure that I'm getting super granular in all of those contracts.
Right. So was the general contractor willing to remove that part of it for you?
So we went back and forth. They did end up removing the verbiage for the liquidated damages. And we just came to an agreement that if Bay Country disposed of material improperly and there was a cost incurred, that we would take care of that cost. The problem was that, again, I was like, the general contractor basically said to me, we've never had anyone, redline any of this stuff. And I was like, well, it seems that the contract that you have actually with the client, these are the requirements for you. And you've just taken those requirements that you as a general contractor have and have now passed them on to your subcontractors. And so the way that the verbiage reads is that I'm responsible to have this contract with your waste disposal company. And so basically they took it back to their attorney and, revised it so that it didn't appear that us as a subcontractor would be held liable. So we worked through it.
Yeah, just imagine all the other subcontractors that don't read their contracts.
It's way
Yeah,
more common than you think.
it
Mhm.
is. It is because this general contractor is a very, very large general contractor, does work all over the nation. And they pretty much admitted to me, they were like, again, we've never had anyone bring up these issues before or even remotely enter into this area of the contract. And I was like, really? I mean, it's surprising because in today's world, when you're sending me a contract that's over 70 pages, it's automatically a red flag to me because there's going to be so many terms and conditions and liquidated damages and just the verbiage of everything. The larger the contract, the more red flags it sends to me.
Right.
And have you had more insurance coverages that you've had to have, like all the pollution and the security, cybersecurity, and those are the ones that we constantly have to go back to and say, we're not even in your building. Our guys aren't allowed to use their phone. Why in the world are you requiring me to have cybersecurity when all I'm doing is paving your parking lot?
Mhm.
And we had one instance where I think there were 14 different types of insurances they wanted us to carry. And so I was going through and talking to our insurance agent, trying to find out what the cost is. And the GC called and said, well, what's taking so long? And I said, you have 14 different policies that you want us to have. And that takes a while to work through. He goes, what are you talking about? So I started listening and he goes, where in the world are you getting those from? I said, from your contract. And he goes, can you send that to me? He had never even read it. He had no idea. He said, well, that answers why so many subs walk away because they're not interested in going through this. I said, the things you have on here aren't even necessary for people who are working outside.
Right.
And so it was a learning lesson for him. But unless more of us actually take that time to read those contracts and say, this is what we need or what we have and what we don't have, then they're never going to know that's what's required of us. And so it was a good lesson for everyone to learn.
Yeah, because the contracts are made to fall in the favor of the general contractor. So any sub needs to read their contract from first page to the very last page.
So Sandra, are you the only one that goes through the contracts then, or do you have someone else that does that?
So I originally start off with it and then project management and sometimes my general superintendent just to make sure that we're going, I'll review the actual contract side, but project management and my superintendent will look at the actual scope. I did sign a contract not that long ago that I did miss something. The general contractor, it was not in our scope, it was not in our proposal, but it was something that had been like verbally talked about, but not anything that we had agreed to. And they did slide that into the scope on the contract, and they are holding me liable for this small piece of scope, which I'm not very happy about, but I signed it. So I feel like now there's just now for myself, for my project manager, for the superintendent, that we all just like triple check everything to make sure that what we're agreeing to is actually what, we bid. So
do you require your contract to be in their contract? Like when we have a contract from a GC, not only do they say including the contract from K&L, but we actually have them, it's actually all the verbiage and the terms and conditions from our contract is actually in that contract, because we got hit with some of those same things that they were like, oh, this is just a general one, we understand. We're like, no, our contract has to be in your contract, and that's the scope of work. But if it's not there, then we're not doing it, because we don't like the generalizations of, oh, covering this much area, or some of the generalizations, because then you get out there and it's very different from what you actually wrote in your estimate. And we've gotten hit with a few of those, but it's always a learning lesson. And I think that's the thing we have to keep in mind, is that It's not a loss if you're learning. You're paying for education, sometimes a little more than others, but we have to take the stance that we're learning so that next time it won't happen.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
So I know one of our biggest thing is right now we're going over the process of like if we hit lines and who calls who and what's going to happen next and who does this, and so nobody drops the ball because I got hit with by the Railroad Commission because we didn't call in the right person. They were standing right next to us when it happened, but we didn't call. So I got hit with a big penalty on that. So how do y'all handle, do y'all have written processes for your guys on stuff like that?
we do because we got hit the same thing. We learned a lesson. So for years, there's a locates line that you can call in to have your locates, and we would call private locates. And for years that was fine. But when we hit a line, even though we'd had private locates out there, we had learned that when you call private locates, it doesn't count. You can know where the lines are, so you're ahead of the game, but unless you actually call this locate number, we got penalized for not calling that locate number, and had to pay a fine for that. And it was a hefty fine, but we learned. And no more do we ever go out anywhere, anything that says excavation, there has to be a locates call. 100%. But you don't know those things until you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I think that's the hard part, is you don't know until you don't know.
Yeah. Well, we all have the locates and everything, but the gas company guy was standing right next to us when we hit the line. And so they didn't call our locate company again to report it. So they hit us with that. So, yeah. And how about y'all, Sandra? Do y'all have a process, or does everybody knows who does what?
Yeah, we have Miss Utility line that we call, and part of our daily and weekly management teams is we go over each job, and each one of those, jobs has a utility ticket and an expiration date. And so that comes out on our meeting minutes. And so everyone can kind of get an idea of where we are. We're doing a big utility job in Northern Virginia. And so we're consistently moving down this pipeline. So that's something that, visually I can see what those dates are, and they're talked about weekly.
Yeah. Now, do y'all have to call every other week and do relocates for it?
Depends on the work area. If the work area is continuously moving, like in this utility area, but if it's just a regular site, usually it's about a 30-day locate. The ticket will cover for 30 days.
And what are y'all at? Because ours is 2 weeks. What are y'all at, Lillian,
Oh,
for relocates?
we haven't done anything. It's a 2-week expiration window, but we haven't done anything where we've been working on utilities, along a line kind of thing. It's usually because we're paving, and that's primarily what we do. It's one set area. But in some of these public works jobs, we're getting into some of that, is that we're moving down the line of adding some pipes and changing some stuff. So we're going to be learning some lessons, I'm sure.
Always fun, isn't it? So what else is going on with y'all for in your fires, putting out fires? Mine was my workers' comp renewed, and so all of my workers' comp certificates are due, and our workers' comp company sent one for each general contractor, not per job. So I'm like, no, I have to have per job, guys. So that's my fire for today, is trying to get all those certificates redone.
Ours renewed a couple months ago. And so that's always, insurance renewal is interesting. Probably the biggest, and so our workers' comp renewed, and then a month later, our liability and auto insurance renewed. And so we have DOT trucks So there's a
Mhm.
whole different set of responsibilities that you have to do with that. So I literally, we just purchased another truck. It's number 60. So it tells you how many vehicles we have. And so I had to pull all the truck packets from all of those vehicles, pull them all in, renew, make sure that the registration and the insurance card and all these documents that you have to carry, even though you never look at them, but you have to carry them, because if they stop you and you don't have that in there, then you get to pay to learn another lesson. And
Yeah.
don't want to do that. So we just did that. And in the midst of that, all the while moving. So our biggest thing is still getting settled in this building and where everything is. And um we have to get some file cabinets and some things like that, because the office that we were in one big room. And so the communication wasn't as pertinent because you were all in the same room and you could hear. And now we all have separate offices, and departments have separate offices. So we have to be more intentional in our communication with each other to make sure to go, oh, I need to go talk to operations and let them know this is happening, or vice versa. They have to come and say, okay, this person, the issue that I was dealing with this morning is that because we have three separate teams in different directions, I didn't know who was where for how many nights and where they were staying and what they were getting. So I had to search down all the details with operations to say, okay, where's the list of who went where and how long they were there and when are they coming back? And, it's just details, and being diligent in asking the question of who else needs to know this information, which
Mhm.
we're all guilty of not doing, because it's just easier to say, oh, well, they'll figure it out,
Yeah.
because we don't want to have to go do that. So what's your fire, Sandra? Internet's working now?
Internet's, I think. I mean, I haven't gotten any texts at the moment from the office. I think one of my fires is really keeping up with my billing. Making sure my W-9, my COIs are up to date. All the lien releases. Each GC is different. Some may have me have to upload my AIA through their website or through their host that they're hosting through. So it's just like keeping track of all the paperwork that needs to be submitted, the certified payroll, just really streamlining that, because every GC is so different about who gets what, where it needs to go to. Like, the schedule of values needs to be approved first, or, schedule of values needs to be sent to the project manager to be reviewed. Like, everyone is so different. And that's, I think, hard, because when you have so many moving parts, trying to keep that all together. So I'm really working on trying to streamline that process of like keeping a spreadsheet of who gets what, where the billing gets submitted to, who needs to be copied on the emails, things like that.
I know that Stacy and I on our job folders on the front I will write pay apps email to, and I have all the emails listed on there. So if one of us, forgets or the other one's not here, somebody knows who to send the pay apps to. But you're right, the schedule of values is just crazy. I have 3 GCs and I can only use their schedule of values forms and payout forms. No one else's. If I send it in on my foundation generated one, they're
Yeah.
like, that's not ours. You have to do it on our form.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. I would
We
not like
recently,
that.
yeah, we recently got stuck having to use some system. I don't even know what it is, but some system that once we put information in, even though we're the ones that have to put it in, if there's something that we accidentally hit the wrong button, we couldn't delete it. We had to contact the person, the GC, to go in and delete it. And then we have to wait for them to come back to it to do it again. And literally this has gone on for 6 months just for one billing, because we can't correct any of our errors that we're doing. So if you don't understand the system, sometimes you have to play with what number are they trying to get to?
Yeah.
And we're waiting for them to delete the errors so that we can go back in and put it in again. but that's never fun. It's all those strange systems. Unfortunately, I don't have to do that. I have someone who does that for us. So the same person who deals with the contracts deals with those kind of billings because I deal with so many other things. But that was part of peeling that onion, figuring out that I don't have the time to read the contracts and to invoice and to do payroll and to do HR and to do, XYZ. But I'm sitting here thinking, Sandra, you really need someone else in that office with you to take on some of this.
You know what? Honestly, I have someone. I have a girl that I brought from the collection agency I own, but like I'm gonna need more.
Mhm.
It's just, especially we're going in, so our fiscal year started April 1st. We're going in with more revenue booked for on our backlog than we even did from last year. So, and every week I've got new contracts coming in. So yeah, it is a true need that I need to bring in another Sandra, honestly.
It's a good problem to have though. But
It is, but we're growing so fast, but it's almost kind of scary because it's like every day I feel like the need for someone, it changes. Like, is it the estimator? Is it a new accountant? Is it, an operational officer? Is it a new superintendent? I feel like depending on my fires for the day, depends on who the priority is to hire that. You know what I mean? Because we're growing so fast, and we really need help. But also too, we talked on the call yesterday, just the whole hiring process of vetting. And I do have an interview today that I'm really looking forward to for a COO position in the company. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, we're going to have major growth this year.
yeah.
I used to describe it as you picture a river and you want to get from this side of the river to that side of the river. My survival mode for so long is that I could do that, but I was dog paddling. So my head was above water, but underneath I was paddling like all get out. And you want to get to the point where you can swim and back float instead of just frantically paddling to get over to the other side of the river. But that's what our growth was for years and still is growing. When I look back at our pictures, that's the thing. We kind of do team pictures once a year. And that's what really gets me when I look at, oh, in 2019, we had like 12 people. And now we have 40 some, between 40 and 50. And that's when the realization hits of like, that's why I felt that way, because it really was that way. But we forget that in the midst of everything, is that how fast you're growing means that your workload is increasing that much too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I really want to take your advice and sit down and write a job description of all the things that I do. I did say on the call yesterday that I do feel that I hold my team back because I allow myself to become so bogged down in doing all these tasks when I should take that same energy and hire someone. Instead, I use the energy to do more tasks. And not only is that slowing me down, but it's slowing my team down. And I really, I get in my own way. And I need to do better at, delegating and hiring and moving the ball forward.
Yeah, I like your idea of writing the job description with it, because years ago I did a list like you did, like this is what I do, and I did a list, but I didn't do a description for each one of them. And I think that probably would be the key. Just
It
getting
was
rid.
because you start realizing how detailed it is. It's not just, oh, I do HR, or oh, I do payroll, or oh, I do contracts, or oh, I just do invoicing. It's all that's involved in that, because in order to do the contracts, you have to sit and read and pick apart and go back and forth and all the emails. In order to do the payroll, you have to gather all the details from all the crews and make sure that they have everybody listed and that it's all correct. So there's so much detail involved in every little step, and it's not getting so granular that it's like, going to this box and picking up this piece of paper. It's literally quickly write a process of what does that job description do? Probably the biggest next thing that I have to let go of that I need to do is our DOT stuff, because there's so many requirements with that. And with 60 vehicles out there, there's just a lot to keep track of all of the maintenance and all the titling and all the taxes and all those things. But literally, until I took the time to sit and write down each one, I knew I was overwhelmed, but I couldn't see how overwhelmed I was. And so now I can just start handing those jobs over and going, okay, this is the next person we need to hire. And sometimes it is mostly doing that job and adding a few other things from other people that we don't really know where to put, but it will work out eventually. And so now we're in an office, we're redoing that again, because there were things that people picked up because we were all in one big room, and now we have to separate. Does that really belong in operations, or does that belong in finance, or does that belong in sales? So we're having to rethink that, but that's not a bad thing. We always should be reevaluating what everybody's doing all the time anyway.
Yeah, agreed. I know that I turned payroll over to a service last year, last September. And it's a little trying sometimes, but I'm glad I did. In the long run, it'll be better for everybody. Stacy still has to do checking the hours and stuff. And so I kind of got onto our foreman yesterday because I could hear in there calling everybody, well, you didn't clock out on this day, or you didn't check into the job. Where were you? Or what time did you leave? And so I told the guys, like, no, guys, like, these are your crews. You make sure everybody's on the right job in the time portal, and they're clocking out. Like, Stacy doesn't need to be doing this, calling everybody, once a week. Where were you last Tuesday? Well, I don't know. Well, I don't need either. Do you want to get paid?
Well, that's our Key Junior is doing a really good job of making our leads responsible for their crews. So even if they put a lead, someone in charge of the paving crew, the paving lead manager, whatever you want to call him, everything has to go through him, and he has to check it off and sign that yes, so and so did this and he filled it out, but yes, all these hours are right. So when something wrong comes to us, we take it back to them and we said, you signed off on this and they don't even have end times. What are you doing? So we're helping, we're starting from the top and helping them to sort through what they're missing, because they don't know what they're really missing. They're like, oh, well, they filled out this form and they signed it. Okay, I'm going to sign it that it's done. But I'm not going back to each of the guys and saying, oh, look, this guy really worked 24 hours. Didn't know you could do that. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, look at the time clock. It says he's still on the clock. And so it's those things, so that I don't have to go back to all 40 people. I'm only going back to the leads. And so it's a smaller pool that I have to go back to, so that they can ask those questions. And it's just accountability and keeping everyone accountable for what they're responsible for, because we all get lazy and going, okay, sign it off, but we have to look at those things, especially as you grow, because there's so many more veins going in every different direction that we can't keep track of it all. And that's what's happening to Sandra, because you guys are growing. There's so much that's going on that you're having a hard time keeping track of everything and figuring out, really able to prioritize what needs to be done. And so you stay there because you feel that pressure, but you don't know how to relieve it because there's no one to relieve it to. But it needs done. So it is a good exercise.
Yeah.
It is. And do you deal with prevailing wage, Sandra?
I don't.
Oh, be glad. Be glad. My general contractor, after being on the job 5 months, we knew it was a partial prevailing wage job, came back 5 months later and said, oh no, the whole job actually is prevailing wage. And not only that, but Karla, you're gonna have to go back and enter them all online. And they're like, are you finished yet? And I'm like, we've been there for 5 months. Like, it's going to take me a while, even online, to fill this out. It's just me. Like, well, are you done? No, I'm not done. Like, don't ask me anymore. Like, I'll get done when I get done. But yeah. So,
Oh my goodness.
yep.
That gives me just a heart attack. We did have a job recently that we were hired to do. The GC did not tell us that it was a prevailing wage job until we were done. Now, granted, ours was only 3 days there, but then they didn't want to pay. We said, your job as someone who is hiring out for prevailing wage job, your requirement is to tell us that it's prevailing wage. And she said, well, I just thought you would know that. We said, why would we know that? You didn't tell us. We're not searching this down anywhere. And so there was a little bit of banter back and forth to say, well, we're not going to incur the cost because that goes into our profit. So you're going to pay the difference of what the prevailing wage and all those costs. And she wasn't really happy, but she knew that she really needed to do that because they did not tell us at all, just like you. And that, man, that just, my heart just is like, oh my gosh, I would die.
I said on the call, and I was like, what? What'd you say? Say that again? Yeah, you're going to do it all online. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah,
So,
because they don't realize the cost that it's even costing your time to
mhm,
sit and do that now, where it has, if they'd informed you, which they're required to do that, you would
right.
already have this in.
Yep. I have all the paper ones. I told her, I said, I have everything on paper. You can have the paper ones. And she's like, no, you need to input it online on the system. Like, okay, well, it's going to take me a while. Like, I have other things. You're not my only job. So, but
Wow.
anyway, all right, ladies, we're almost at our closing time. Why don't we end with a win? Everybody's win for the week.
A win is that we're in our office and we have internet and it's working and we have a new system that we're figuring out, but we can copy, scan, print, and we know where things are going right now. And that's huge because none of us in the office are super technical. So we all have to get together and say, how do we solve this problem? But that was a huge sense of accomplishment that we can scan and print, because I know the first day we were in here, I had a contract I had to get to someone. I literally ended up taking a picture and sending it to her and saying, when I can figure out how to scan, I'll get it to you. So, so
Well,
now
I'm
that
so
we
happy
have
that
it,
y'all are in your office.
yes, it is a new world for us. So it's nice. What's your win, Sandra?
Well, I think my win hasn't happened yet. I think my win is happening this evening when I do this potential interview for the COO position. I'm feeling super blessed to be able to speak to this person and really think that they would be a good fit for our team. So I'm speaking into an existence that's going to be my win.
Awesome. That's great. My win is I got an email the other day before yesterday, looked kind of fishy, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And so I emailed the lady back, and she goes, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to send that one to you. I was going to write your own email, but at the end, I have been invited to go to Illinois to one of the top construction equipment companies and be on a panel of 8 to 10 other women from the construction industry. So I am
Cool.
super excited.
That's
So,
Oh,
awesome.
yeah,
fun.
all expense paid. You can pick me up at the airport. Just like, I was like, wow. So that's my win for the week. So
That's awesome.
That's a major win,
Congratulations.
Carla. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I'm excited. I felt yesterday like good things were rolling in my favor finally. So yeah.
We're going to need to make sure that you're wearing your TCS Women swag
Yes. Yeah.
then, you know?
Hint,
That's
hint.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, thank you for joining us today, and I hope y'all have a great week. Sandra, I hope your internet problem gets solved and you don't have to deal with that anymore. So thank y'all.
Welcome to the TCS Women podcast, where the ladies of the top contractor school are going to get together to discuss what it's like to be a woman in construction, leadership, and navigating the balance between it all. Your host for the TCS Women podcast will be Karla Goldammer, who has been in construction for almost 30 years with D&J Site Construction. She will be accompanied by a rotation of co-hosts that include Elizabeth Ryman of RK Ryman Construction, Sandra Albert of Bay Country Contractors, Lillian Callaway of K&L Industries, and Kelsey Wright of Pro Line Parking Lot Maintenance. Let's get started.